Hi guys, Jane here, and today I am reviewing Scarlet. This is the second book in the Lunar Chronicles, and it, it is a retelling of Little Red Riding Hood, and it's kind of about Cinder from the first book exploring her past, and Scarlet is involved in that. I don't want to say too much. I will do a spoilery section, but since this is the second book in the series, it's hard to tell you what's going on without spoiling stuff. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I liked it about as much as I liked Cinder. They're very different books. And there were some things that I felt like Cinder did that I liked better. They're both really interesting. I love the world building in both, and I had a really good time with both. I felt like Cinder, we spent a lot of time developing the character of Cinder. And kind of the main characters of this book are Scarlet and Wolf. And I felt like we didn't get as much development as them, with them as we did with Cinder. Cinder is I felt well-developed character. I really connected with her, really understood her story. This book is less character-driven, and it's more a lot going on. Kind of, I don't want to say an adventure story because it's not quite that, but it feels like that. There's a lot of, okay, we've got to go and do this. Scarlet's grandmother is missing, because that's what you do in the Little Red Riding Hood story. And so, so much of the book is we got to go find grandma. And it was a good book, but it was definitely a lot different than Cinder. Cinder also ended very heavily on a cliffhanger that I was like, okay, now I've got to read the next book. And this one ended with loose ends, but nothing that made me go, I have to pick up the next book right now. As a matter of fact, I'm probably going to take a couple months before I do pick up the next book. I have a copy of the next book. This is a library copy, but I do have my own. I bought Cress and Winter. So I'm excited to read them, but I don't have the same urgency after reading this that I did with reading Cinder. So you can take that as you will. But this wasn't a bad book. It was good. It was about as good as Cinder. Maybe not quite, but I did have a good time with it. So I'm going to go ahead now and step into some spoilers so that we can have a more detailed discussion about what worked and what didn't. Most of what I'm going to be spoiling is Cinder. So if you've already read Cinder, you're probably okay to listen to this section. So Cinder in the first book ended up in jail and was given what she needed by the doctor guy for a jailbreak. Basically, she does that. And she spends the whole book kind of trying to find out more about Princess Celine and how she got to be here. And this book is basically just her origin story. There wasn't very much in the way of reveals that weren't revealed in the first book. And I think that was one of the weakest parts of this book, is that in the first book, it was like reveal, 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 and world build. And this didn't feel to me like there was as many reveals. It was mostly stuff we already knew and just kind of exploring it. Even, like I said, the stuff with Scarlet and Wolf, I didn't feel like there were too many big reveals with that. Like, this book, other than the characters it introduces, I'm not sure how much it adds to the overall story. And we're not very far away from where we left off in Cinder by the time this book resolves. So I didn't feel like we made a lot of progress in the main storyline. It was still fun, but not enough significant stuff happened for me to feel like this made a huge difference in the story. It felt more like, okay, we've given you all the important stuff that Cinder is Princess Celine. Now we're going to go back and find out how that happened and who helped her and, you know, kind of where she came from and how that all happened. Scarlet and Wolf are not super important characters in their own right. They're important in Cinder's story, kind of, but maybe they'll be more important later. This didn't have the same importance as the first book. I didn't like it quite as much. I loved all the reveals in the first book, and I loved really getting to know Cinder. And there's basically a lot more characters in this book that we're trying to get to know. And so it didn't feel as deep to me. There were some things I loved. Aiko is back in this one, and I loved her from the first book. And her personality and role is a lot of fun. Kai is in this one, although he plays a much smaller part. And of course, Cinder is back, and she doesn't quite get as much screen time or stage time as Scarlet and Wolf, but she gets some. So we do see quite a bit of her. And it is fun watching her, but again, this book felt more like we're going to go on an adventure than it did we're going to develop characters and world. So I did enjoy this. I didn't like it quite as much as Cinder, but I'm interested still, and I didn't hate it. The Scarlet and Wolf relationship was kind of weird, and I had mixed feelings about that. Wolf was kind of a weird character. Now, somebody had told me that originally when Marissa Meyers wrote this, she'd intended for Wolf to have amnesia. And I see why she didn't end up going that path in the book, but I'm wondering if some of the choices that she made that seemed weird to me were because when she wrote that section, she still intended for Wolf to have amnesia. I also didn't think this had some of the same brilliance in Cinder of the ways it nodded towards the original source material. It had a few moments, but I thought Cinder was a lot more brilliant in the being a Cinderella retelling than Scarlet was at being a Little Red Riding Hood retelling. But overall, a good book. I'm enjoying the series. I'm going to continue reading. Not quite as good as Cinder, but certainly not bad. Yeah, and I think that's really my thoughts on Scarlet. So, which of the Lunar Chronicles books, if you read the series, was your favorite? Did you like this one better than Cinder? Of the two that I have remaining, which ones, which is Cress and Winter, which ones did you like the most? Which ones did you think were the best done? My social media is below. You can like and subscribe. I post videos Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and occasionally on Saturdays as well. So I will see you guys next time. Bye.